Ranchers have struggled with skyrocketing corn prices because the drought has made feeding their livestock very expensive. But one rancher, Joseph Watson, has turned to a very sweet solution. His 1,400 cattle are no longer feeding off corn. Earlier this year, he began buying secondhand candy to feed them. He says, quote, "It has a higher ratio of fat than actually feeding straight corn. It's hard to believe it will work, but we've already seen the results of it now."
So if somebody shows up at your door this Halloween dressed up like a cow, it might actually be a cow.
Exactly. But I was thinking it's also like a very good metaphor for the global economy. Here, there's a drought in liquidity, and the central banks, in response, are feeding us candy of quantitative easing. Well, they're feeding the banks candy of quantitative easing.
Right. The bonuses from Wall Street are getting bigger and bigger, so the quantitative easing is working. The fat cats, the fat cows on Wall Street, they're getting fatter. So the quantitative easing, see, it's working. That's what Ben Bernanke looks at. It's working. The fact that the total economy itself is being driven into the cow pie, as it were, that doesn't matter.
Banks use $1.77 trillion to double Treasury purchases. So in this case, the central banking rancher looks at this and says, hey, my banking cows are doing so well because the gap between U.S. bank deposits and loans is growing at the fastest pace in 2 years, providing lenders with more funds to buy bonds and temper the biggest sell-off in Treasury since 2010.
Right. So imagine the cow has a tube attached from its udder into its mouth. That's Ben Bernanke's economic strategy, is the self-feeding cow. The government is printing its own paper, of which it consumes its own paper, creating a fake GDP growth in terms of utter lactation, which ends up going right back into the front end of the cow.